We've had lots of gritty, dark reimaginings this last decade. I gotta say, this one caught me off guard. Of all the things to give a gritty, dark reimagining to, they chose the Fresh Prince of Bel Air. But I wanted to give it a fair chance. I thought it was too easy to go into it with a mindset of hating it. And it actually kind of surprised me. Will is a fish out of water, learning to adapt to his surroundings while the family slowly accepts him as one of their own. Oh wait, I just described the original Fresh Prince. Bel Air is a show about Will being a fish out of water while the family adapts to his presence and slowly accepts him as one of their own, but stretched to 60 minutes and without any of the comedy. From the very first episode, you could tell this show was in a completely different ballpark than the original. Actually, not just a different ballpark, a whole different sport. If Fresh Prince was baseball, then this is some football if I've ever seen it. The first episode actually spent some time in Philly, showing Will's life, his relationship with his mom, his friends, how he's living in his community, which I thought was great. It added a lot of depth to him. It would be a lot harder for him to give up this whole life that he had. But then all that development stopped. It was like halfway through the episode, the writers realized, this show's called Bel Air? I thought it was gonna be called Big Willie in West Philly. We have to get him out of there. It was so jarring, which I guess is the point. His life getting turned upside down, got in one little fight, mama got scared. I just thought they were gonna build it up even more. Like they would end the episode with him and his mom realizing he can't stay here anymore. Credits would roll. Episode 2 has him on the plane, flying over, looking at like photos of his life, and it would be like this huge emotional moment. But instead they're like, okay, it's been 20 minutes.
One little fight, mom got scared. Go, 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 Cali, bitch.
So now Will's in Bel Air, and we start to meet the rest of the characters. And they all are completely different than the original. You could have told me these characters are from a BET reboot of Riverdale, and I would have believed it. Carlton is now a codependent drug addict who's going through his villain arc. Say that 3 times fast. He went from having a stick up his ass to now storing coke up there. Geoffrey is now the bodyguard, but he's also some bad man. He's like Uncle Phil's right-hand man who's supposed to take care of all like the dirty work. Supposed to be, but that's not what he's ever actually doing. More on that later. Hilary's a cooking influencer, cause why not? Jazz and Ashley exist. Uncle Phil is interesting. He's kind of like a shady politician with skeletons in his closet, but he's still a good guy trying to like do best by his family. It's definitely a more grounded take on his character, but he also felt like way less of a role model for Will. On the other hand, Aunt Viv was the one who I thought improved the most. She was an artist who had to give it up when she got married and had kids. Recently, she started to re-find her passion and is once again trying to pursue her dream. I just found her character really relatable. The most improved character by far. Overall, a lot of the season was kind of rough, especially the first half. Will's getting used to Bel Air, trying out for the basketball team, making friends, just setting up a life for himself. This is like a more stripped back version of the character. It's hard to live up to the original Will Smith. That man just oozes charisma. Oozes. Pours out of him. He still has plenty of charisma, don't get me wrong, but he also has a much more serious side to him. He's a kid from a rough neighborhood with a single mother and an absent father. It's hard to shine in a life full of shadows. So his character is much more quietly charismatic rather than the loudly charismatic original Will Smith. From the beginning, there's a lot of friction between him and Carlton. Carlton, being the wannabe anime villain that he is in this show, just unnecessarily antagonizes Will, and it's just a huge dick. The rivalry only gets amplified as Will gets closer to Carlton's ex-girlfriend, and a sort of love triangle forms, and the whole time he is just consistently doing drugs, which is just so like, it's Carlton. I get it kind of goes with the preppy vibe. He's like a private school kid. Every time I saw him doing coke, I was just like, what is going on? I would have thought that little kid from season 6 would have been the drug addict before I thought Carlton. It's really sad. It felt like they took all the joy away from the original character and just replaced it with anxiety and self-loathing. I mean, same, but still, you hate to see it. Hilary is an influencer who's trying to prove to her parents that she can make good decisions and grow on her own. Now, that plotline makes a lot of sense for Hilary's character. And then they added cooking. Why would they think that this girl,
I need a new hat.
This girl needed a Gordon Ramsay arc? Now her plotline is just Remy from Ratatouille. I had such a hard time imagining her in the actual kitchen. Flavors are melting on my tongue. I need to give my compliments to the chef. Mr. Ramsay back here? I'm just kidding, but chef, that was... You cooked my chili cheese fries? Wearing that? It's like they figured everything that would make her work in a comedy just would be terrible in a drama. So they did a complete 180 on the character. They basically just turned her into Ashley, who, by the way, is barely in the show. Probably because all her characterizations given to Hilary.
It has been so great.
She just kind of pops up here and there, and her whole storyline is she's starting to discover herself, going through puberty, figure out like who she's attracted to, figure out who she is, and there's a little friction with her and her parents because of that. Maybe in season 2 she'll have a lot more to do.
I'm a poet and didn't even know I was rhyming those words.
But you easily could have cut out her few scenes from the show and nothing would have changed. And speaking of nothing, now comes my favorite segment. What is Geoffrey doing and how can I have his job? Here he is chilling, clinking without a care. Now he's taking a nice stroll. Here he is hustling in pool. Here he is with a nice leisurely read. Oh, now he's looking like a dad on a cruise.
Everybody's got an assignment. What are you gonna be doing? I'll be around.
Towards the middle of the season, you find out Geoffrey's kind of like the guy who does Uncle Phil's shady work. He's not a butler, he's a
Batman.
which is an interesting choice in reimagining him, but it didn't work for me. He just seemed more lazy than intimidating. Even his big climactic moment of the season was just him refusing to do his job and not wanting to work. Uncle Phil's plotline was the most interesting to me. He's running for office, and a lot of his plot revolves around him trying to do things for his campaign and getting support, and also like how his campaign is affecting or being affected by the family. It was a really cool place to take his character. He wasn't always morally in the right, but he was never a
Batman.
It just felt like he was doing what he had to do best by his family, while also trying to do this campaign. I really liked how him and Aunt Viv got along. They kind of felt like couple goals. They were very supportive of each other as he was doing the campaign and as she was getting back into the art scene. She does this, by the way, through this guy who's very infatuated with her work and her titties. The show can say whatever the hell it wants to. I do not believe it. When it comes to this guy, he 100% wants to smash. He is trying to clap Vivian cheeks daily, nightly, until the sun comes up and the rooster crows. Every scene involving the two has him looking at her like she's a hair joke and he's Will Smith. The intensity is so unmatched that I actually feel like they're building up to an infidelity plotline next season. And if they do, I take it back about the couple goals. The tension between her, Uncle Phil, and this art guy felt very realistic, which I appreciated because so much of the other tension and drama in this show felt so forced, which is weird because the situation so easily lends itself to drama. Street kid from Philly going to rich California has to adapt, family has to adapt. Other than Will and Carlton, the family very quickly accepts him. And then after that, most of the tension gets replaced with these like love plot lines, love triangles, and then some after school special type plot line involving this guy and racism. Like the show is trying so hard to feel real at times that it ends up feeling superficial. It wasn't until halfway through the season when Will's friend shows up from Philly that my opinion finally started to change on the show. Him and Will have this huge falling out. He kind of feels betrayed by his friend. Will feels like he's laying down his community and his friends. I really enjoyed every time these two were on screen together. That happens, I think, episode 5 of the show, and that was the turning point for me. Because after that point, I kind of started to enjoy the show. Vivian and Hungry Hippo over here keep having scenes together where they're building their chemistry. Uncle Phil ends up pissing off the police union enough that they run their own candidate who's able to get dirt on Uncle Phil and how he helped Will. So Uncle Phil ends up dropping out of the race instead of having Will and his dirty laundry aired out. And the very last episode of the show was by far my favorite, where, massive spoiler alert, Will's dad ends up showing up and they see each other for the first time in over a decade. This was my favorite part of the show by far. Seeing him and Will interact, Will finding out the truth about his dad, knowing his family lied to him, knowing his mom lied to him. Marlon Wayans killed this character, and I really felt for Will as he had to process all this and deal with these emotions. Overall, I don't know how I feel about the show. I almost feel like I dreamed it. It's still so hard for me to believe. They did a gritty, Fresh Prince of Bel Air. After this, I'm really looking forward to the gritty Teletubbies reboot, where Lala is an ex-con and Poe is a blood. Would I ever rewatch season 1 of Bel Air? Probably not. Will I watch season 2? Yeah, if I can get some content out of it. Please subscribe, because I have no subscribers and I'd want some, please. And yeah, that's it. Goodbye.